Have you ever wished you could write your own story? Not just in a diary, but in the world itself? What if every word you wrote came true? That's the story of Elara, a girl whose words had a power she was only just beginning to understand. Our tale begins in a quiet, perpetually overcast town, a place where the sky always seemed to be holding its breath. Here lived Elara, a girl with an unusual secret. She didn't write in a leather-bound journal or on crisp white paper. She wrote on glass, specifically on the fogged-up windows of her small cottage, but only when it rained. The first time it happened, she was just a child. A heavy storm was lashing against the panes, and little Elara, feeling lonely, traced a simple picture with her finger, a small fluffy kitten with a bell around its neck, sitting. On her doorstep, she smiled at her creation, then wiped it away as the rain subsided. The next morning when she opened her door, there it was. A tiny, shivering kitten, exactly as she had imagined, with a little silver bell that tinkled softly. As she grew, her writings became more elaborate. No longer just pictures, but words, sentences, stories. She would wait for the rain, for the condensation to bloom across the glass like a blank canvas. One day she wrote about the baker's wife, Mrs. Gable, who had lost her precious wedding ring years ago. Elara wrote, Mrs. Gable finds her ring in a robin's nest. The next day the whole town was buzzing. A gust of wind had knocked a nest from the old oak tree in the town square, and nestled among the twigs was a tarnished silver band. The town, once gloomy under the constant grey skies, started to change. Elara, from the privacy of her cottage, became its secret benefactor. She wrote of bountiful harvests for struggling farmers, and their fields flourished. She wrote of a lost child finding their way home, and a joyful reunion took place by the old stone bridge. She wrote of the shy librarian finding the courage to talk to the handsome postman, and soon wedding bells were ringing. Every time the rain fell and her finger danced across the glass, a small miracle would unfold. Her power was a beautiful, wonderful secret, but it was also a lonely one. She was the town's invisible angel, the author of everyone's happiness but her own. She watched from her window as the lives she scripted played out in vibrant color, while her own life remained as gray as the ever-present clouds. She longed for a friend, for someone to share her secret with, for her own love story. So one stormy evening, with rain streaming down the glass, she decided to write for herself. She took a deep breath, and with a trembling finger, she wrote her most heartfelt story yet. She wrote of a kind stranger, a traveler with eyes the color of the summer sky and a smile that could chase away the clouds, who would get lost in the storm and seek shelter at her cottage. She described him in perfect detail, from the way his hair would be slicked back with rain to the gentle way he would speak. She poured all her loneliness, all her hopes into those fleeting words on the glass. She waited. The rain continued to fall, a steady drumming rhythm against the roof. Hours turned into a day and then another. She watched the path, her heart thumping with anticipation, but no one came. Her story, the one that mattered most to her, remained just that, a story. For the first time her magic had failed, or so she thought. The realization dawned on her slowly, a cold dread seeping into her bones. Her stories always came true without exception. If the stranger hadn't appeared, it meant the conditions of her story hadn't been fully met. The story was still in progress. He was still lost in the storm. A new fear gripped her. She raced to the window, her breath fogging a new patch of glass. She had written that he would be lost in the storm. For him to arrive, the storm had to continue. Her desire, her selfish wish for companionship, was keeping the town and her stranger trapped in an endless deluge. She checked the forecast, her hands shaking. The radio crackled with a chilling prediction. Unprecedented weather patterns show rain continuing indefinitely. Experts are baffled. It seems the rain is here to stay, forever, forever. The word echoed in the small cottage. The town she had so carefully nurtured was now in danger of flooding, of being washed away, all because of her one selfish story. The harvests she'd created would be ruined. The homes would be submerged. Her miracle had become a curse. Elara was faced with an impossible choice. To save her town, to let the sun shine again, she had to erase her story. She had to erase him. The man with eyes, the color of the summer sky, the man she already felt she loved, would never exist. Her one chance at happiness would vanish like breath on a cold day. With tears mixing with the condensation on the window, she stood before the glass. The words she had written with such hope were still faintly visible, the story of her love. Her hand hovered, trembling. Could she do it? Could she sacrifice her own happy ending for the sake of everyone else? Her gaze fell upon the town below, the lights of the houses flickering like fragile stars against the overwhelming dark and rain. She saw the bakery, the library, the farms. She saw the lives she had touched, the happiness she had created. They were her stories too, her real stories. Taking a ragged breath, she raised her hand and wiped the glass clean. The words vanished, her story was gone, and then a strange thing happened. The rain didn't stop, it grew heavier, the wind howling with renewed fury. Panic seized her. Why wasn't it working? She had erased the story. But then she understood the story wasn't just the words, the story was in her heart. As long as she held on to the hope of him, the memory of him, the rain would fall. To truly end the storm, she had to let go completely, not just the words on the window, but the hope within her soul. She closed her eyes, picturing the stranger's face one last time, and then she let the image dissolve. She let go of the longing, the loneliness, the dream. She chose her town, she chose them. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, the drumming on the roofs softened. A sliver of light pierced through the thick blanket of clouds in the distance. The relentless gray began to break apart. A sunbeam, pale and watery, touched the wet ground for the first time in what felt like an eternity. Elara opened her door and stepped outside. The air was clean and fresh, a rainbow, brilliant and bold, stretched across the sky, a promise she had never dared to write. Her stories on the window were gone, perhaps forever. Her magic had demanded the ultimate price. She was alone again, but as she looked at the emerging sun and the town slowly coming back to life, she smiled. It was a sad smile, but a smile nonetheless. She was no longer the author of their happiness, but she was its guardian, and in that she found a new kind of story, her own. Thank you so much for watching. If this story touched your heart, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more tales that explore the magic hiding in the everyday. We'll see you in the next story.